Hey, everybody. So, just want to make these little comments now and then talking about things in the news. We're starting the turn. It's the day after Memorial Day. Don't hate me because I'm, in front of the fire at the camp in Maine. It's raining out there. So, yeah. Anyway, one of the things that strikes me, though, in the news is this Reuters is reporting that Putin is supposedly interested in making a peace deal. Now, this is sketchy reporting, but, he is doing something that I have been expecting he would get around to at some point. That is trying to say, all right, let's stop where we are. And he said he would be open to peace talks that would solidify the lines where they are now. And, in that context, Russia would have gained the land bridge to Crimea, most of Kherson province. It wouldn't have achieved Putin's maximal aims, but it would, be very much a victory for him. And it would presumably stop a lot of the bleeding. And this is the kind of thing we would expect to do. And why do I say that? Putin is an authoritarian leader. He has a different set of incentives than a democratic leader would have in a similar situation. And this is something that I'm going to be talking about in my comparative government class. It's something that comes into play through selectorate theory in the strategy universe, right? That leaders have different incentives based on what type of government they have. A democratic leader needs to satisfy a large number of constituents. And generally, it's such a large number that they can't buy them off. They can't just give them private benefits. They have to actually perform. So democratic leaders have their feet held to the fire. So if Putin was a democratic leader, he would be very much judged on how the war was going, about whether the war achieved its goals. The fact that he went out and started talking all these maximal goals of denazifying and all this bullducky. If he was a democratic leader, he would be if those were what his constituents wanted him to do, if he had built support for those goals, not achieving them would be a problem. But he's not a democratic leader. He's an authoritarian leader. And authoritarian leaders, according to selectorate theory, stay in power by satisfying what makes them authoritarian is they have a small coalition. They only depend on a small number of people to keep them in power, a small enough number that they can buy them off. They give them benefits. And Putin definitely does this with his key allies. These guys are billionaires off of all the corruption that's endemic in the Russian system. And that's why there's corruption, because that's the way power is, loyalty is rewarded and people are in the coalition are kept in line. And the point about that situation is do what you want in Ukraine, right? The supporters are supporters because they're getting private benefits from Putin. As long as the private benefits flow, that's good. And to a certain extent, a long drawn out war could eventually make it difficult for Putin to deliver on those private benefits. So it makes sense for him to change. And in fact, he has the ability as an authoritarian leader to redefine, to be opportunistic, to say, all right, this is good. I've gotten stuff. Let me put a pin in it. Sure, he can start it up later. I mean, we can get in all this stuff, right? There's nothing that stops him from starting up the war later. And in fact, he's doing a land for peace. He's basically making a land for peace deal. Recognize my annexation of all these areas, and I'll stop fighting. Right? And the thing is that if you do that, you can't take that recognition back. Right? And so it's called a renegotiate. It's not renegotiation proof is the technical term in game theory. And so this is a problem with all land for peace deals, going back to Hitler invading Czechoslovakia, right? Is this is appeasement, right? You give them what they want, but you can't take it back, right? And so therefore they can want more. And if they can, if there's nothing in the deal that obviates the threat, then yeah. Now, of course, we could have a deal made where there's NATO membership. And so there's a lot we can talk about on that side of things. But I just wanted to just point out that this is very interesting. And one of the tools I am going to use in the comparative government class, and we'll talk about in strategy class at different times, is this selectorate theory and the analysis of the incentives that leaders have and how they differ across different types of regimes. And so the thing about Putin, the bottom line is, I look for this, and we're going to keep this discussion going, but it's kind of one-sided, but it is a different situation, right? When we can't apply the standards we would apply to a Western democratic leader, or not standards, but our understanding, our causal model, right? There are different factors at work, and we have to keep that in mind. So there we go, just a little thought here as we start off the term. And like I say, these comments are meant just to be kind of additional to the course. Serious stuff about the course goes into the course announcements, and there you go. So it's interesting, and we'll be keeping this discussion going as the term progresses.